Hello, everyone, and I hope you are all well. My name is Tanner Dagenais, and I'm the host of Self Sabotage Solutions. On this podcast, it's my opportunity and my pleasure to be able to share everything I know about self sabotage so that you are able to overcome self sabotage in your life. Now, in today's podcast, we're going to be talking about change and why creating change and why creating a lasting, permanent positive change in your life can sometimes be so hard, and why it is that we self sabotage our best attempts at creating those changes. So, for instance, many of you guys may be familiar with this one. You create a New Year's resolution and you want this thing, right? But then you end up never going to do it. Or you end up buying a gym membership and you go maybe for a week and then you stop going and you're just wasting money at that point. Or you buy some nice home exercise equipment and then it's collecting dust a few months later, right? Or you want to start eating healthier again, and then you find that food rotting in the fridge while you are eating fast food, right? So why is this happening? Why are we telling ourselves we want something and then doing totally opposite actions? And for many of us, and I know I was in this, it can be very frustrating. It can feel like there's something wrong with us. Like we know what we want, we know what we want to do, but we keep doing the opposite thing, and it's frustrating because we feel like there's nothing we can do about it. And that's not true. There is something you can do about it, and there's nothing wrong with you either. This is happening for a very specific reason, and it's you are actually functioning exactly as designed, and that's what you need to understand. That this is not a malfunction. Okay, your conscious mind wants something, but your subconscious mind wants something different, and that's where this problem is coming from. That is why you are sabotaging your best attempts at going after your conscious desires. So first, let's talk a little bit about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, just to make sure we are clear when we're talking about this. The conscious mind, this part of your mind is the logical, long-term thinking, thinking of goals, dreams, daydreaming, those sorts of things. So that's where your inhibitions are stored. That's where, what you want to do with your life is stored. Then you got your subconscious mind. It's more like a record player, a data drive that essentially works at bringing in information, and it does this at an astounding rate, 11 million pieces of information a second, compared to the conscious mind, which is only 40 pieces of information a second. So you can tell it's a much stronger part of the mind. This part of the mind, or I guess you should say not necessarily stronger, but has a lot more processing power. And so this part of your mind is constantly scanning the environment for things that are safe actions to do. And it determines this based on how often it sees something, based on how often it's repeated in the environment. And so, or if it's done by a group of people, if it gets positive reinforcement, or if it gets negative reinforcement. So you got to think about, so it's important to think about these two parts of the mind. Now, where most of the goals from your subconscious mind come from, most of the safe things to do, they come from outside sources. They don't come from within us. So this is why usually we have that interference where two parts of our mind are fighting each other. And what you'll find is that usually the subconscious mind will win because it has that a little bit more brain power, and it has the ability to influence our conscious mind. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that now, but that's why when you are moving forward and trying to beat that, create that change, like eat healthy or something, you hit that wall. You just smack right into it, and maybe you get launched back a couple steps, right? And then you are back to eating a bunch of fast food again. So what is going on there is that your subconscious mind is giving you some kind of urges, some kind of cravings, something to make you think about eating unhealthy again. So maybe you'll be eating healthy for a couple days, and then you'll start, you get a huge craving for some ice cream, and then next thing you know, you're in the, the frozen foods aisle or in your freezer, just picking out on a carton of ice cream, or you are, in the fast food line for McDonald's or some other crappy fast food place, right? Because your subconscious mind wants you to stick with what is familiar and what is the safe option. And for what you got to understand is this part of your mind, the subconscious, is not really logical, right? It is illogical. It's a primitive part of your mind. It thinks short term, thinks in the short term, just quickest, safest option based on what everything else is doing around you. So if everyone around you is sick and diseased and depressed, well, then that would be the safest option. And so safety does not always mean health, does not always mean happiness, does not always mean success. Oftentimes it means the opposite, especially in our society today. So that's why it's so important you understand how the subconscious mind operates. Because the reason why you're experiencing this self-sabotage is not because for the reasons you may be thinking. The reason why you're experiencing this self-sabotage is because of the things that are influencing your subconscious mind and what your subconscious mind deems as the safest option. Because then your subconscious mind is going around and giving you those urges, those cravings, those thoughts, those repeated thoughts that keep coming up over and over and over and won't leave your head until you take those actions and you start to cave in and start eating unhealthy again. Okay? So what you need to understand is that you can actually be the one to change that. You don't have to be stuck feeling like you are, or yeah, you don't have to feel stuck anymore. There's not a reason to feel like you can't do anything because there are solutions to be able to address this and move forward. Now, I think there's also part of it is conscious because part of it consciously we are scared. And this is also partially subconscious as well because we were born with an innate program or instinct to avoid danger, to avoid situations that cause us fear. Because anything that's usually fearful for us is a source of stress and usually has potential for us to be hurt or to be damaged. And so these kinds of situations we will avoid, like jumping off a cliff or going very high up or in like high heights or encountering a wild animal, right? But today many of us are in a state of fear when we're not necessarily in danger like this. We might be scared of, our finances. We might be scared of what's happening on the news. We might be scared of, of losing a loved one, of um, having a fight with a romantic partner. There's so much things that we're scared of nowadays that aren't very logical sometimes. And these things put us into a state of short-term thinking because when we're in that fear response, we go into what's called flight or flight, where our body drains blood to the arms or the legs so we can either run and flight or we can stay and fight. And what you need to understand is that in this mode, blood actually drains out of your brain. And so when blood is draining out of your brain, the part of your brain that's left active is the primal part, the subconscious, because it is there for the quick decisions. It can help you make the quick decisions to say, all right, let's get out of here now. Let's go here. Let's go there. It doesn't think long term though. And so a lot of self-sabotaging actions, a lot of self-sabotage is short-term thinking because we're not thinking long-term about how this is going to get to me to my life. We're only thinking short-term. So if you're feeling pain now, you think, oh, let's smoke some marijuana. Let's drink some alcohol. Let's do some drugs so we feel better in the now. But we don't think about long-term. Are we going to be wasting our time? Are we going to be avoiding doing something else we need to be doing? Is this going to make me feel worse later on? We don't think about those things because we are stuck in that short term thinking. So we got to get away from the fear mindsets, and we got to take a deep breath and allow ourselves to think. And so many of us are scared of change because we're wondering, what happens if we fail? Is someone going to make fun of me? Is this going to mean like I'm not supposed to be doing this? Is this going to mean that I'm not good enough? I'm not good enough to be able to run this business. I'm not good enough to be able to be healthy. What if happens if I don't lose weight and then I'm still fat and I'm still ugly, and that doesn't mean I won't ever change, right? But it's funny because this fear of change, the fear of failing, in its sense is failing itself, because if we never get started or never even attempt something, that's the true failure, right? Trying something and making a mistake or having to alter your plan is not a failure. It's a learning experience so that you can move forward and then try something else. And that's what we need to think of it as. We need to think of it as a attempt to move towards the life we want. And then we don't give up. We keep moving and don't get discouraged. We just try something new if that didn't work. Or try it again one more time. And if that doesn't work, try something new, because taking the same actions over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity, right? We and that's what I used to always do for a long time, right? So I would be working in a job all day. I'd come home tired, tell myself I needed to have a drink of alcohol, like a Coke and whiskey or a beer, and then I'd smoke, a hit on my bong, a dab out of my oil rig, and I'd be all high and drunk, and I would tell myself, I want something different in life, and then play video games all night, or watch TV, or go hang out with my friends, but I wanted something different, but I kept taking the same actions over and over and over, and I was expecting different results. I was like, why is my life not changing? Because I wasn't doing anything different. I had to start taking different actions, thinking different thoughts to get to where I am today. And that's what you need to start doing if you want to be able to, you know, create that lasting change in your life. If you want to be able to overcome the self-sabotage in your life, you got to start taking different actions. You got to start having different thoughts in your head, and that's very, very important. The thoughts you put into your head and the thoughts you let stay in your head and that you don't counteract with something different is can be can affect you in a very either good or negative way. So let's say you have a thought that says, I'm not good enough, I'm not able to do this. If you just let that be the truth and you just go on with your day after that, then that's going to be the truth, because your subconscious mind's going to take that as like an order, as a blueprint, and it's going to keep repeating that to you, and then it's going to help you fail when time comes. So this part of your mind takes our thoughts as actions, takes your thoughts as actions. So you need to give it the right blueprints, the right instructions to create your life, and then you got to show it the right things so that it thinks that's a safe thing to do. So what things can you show it, and what things might be bad, influencing it wrong? So what you also need to understand, remember, this part of the mind is not logical. It can't understand the difference between fiction and reality. So that means anything you're listening to, like songs, podcasts, TVs, movies, anything you're watching, like the TV, movie, things on social media, anything you're reading, like books or social media posts or things like that, or memes, those things all have an effect on you and your subconscious mind. So if those things are primarily negative, your life is going to be more negative. And that's just the way it is, because we as humans, we have what's called imitative learning. So we mimic those things around us. Have you ever noticed, like, when you are with a friend who keeps saying this phrase a lot or starts singing something over and over, the next thing you know, you got that stuck in your head, and you find yourself saying the exact same thing, that's because of imitative learning. We like to mimic those our surroundings so that we can fit in, so that we can be safe within the tribe and our immediate tribe, right? And there's many different tribes in our life. We got our family tribe, we got our friend tribe, we got the greater society tribe. We might have like an online tribe, and you can create new tribes and convince your subconscious mind that it's safe to be within those and it's the safest option to be a part of those tribes. And so, for instance, if you're always watching like TV shows where people's lives are just complete garbage, like Shameless or like Grey's Anatomy or other shows like that, where their lives are literally like train wrecks and they are always having relationship problems and they are you know uh, downing you know drugs and alcohol and they are having sex scandals and all these things, then that's what you're going to be mimicking. And that's what you're going to be seeking out in your life. And so if you keep having terrible relationships or you keep, partying and then like breaking yourself down or certain things like that, there's a reason why. And we don't always mimic the exact same thing we see. We usually mimic the vibration, what I mean by vibration is like an abusive vibration. So if you are, um, something that like would be harmful to yourself. So you may not be drinking alcohol like your parents did, but instead you're smoking cigarettes. Or you may not be smoking cigarettes like your parents did, but instead you are smoking marijuana. Or you may not be smoking marijuana like your parents did, but now you're taking shrooms and LSD all the time, right? There's different things, or you may not be whatever, right? And then there's the cocaine or opioids or painkillers or drinking alcohol all the time or just beating yourself up or abusing yourself in another way. You are chasing that same vibration that your tribe has. That tribe, these tribes that I'm talking about are very important because we are tribal beings. We are um, tribal beings that we find comfort in groups because of that safetiness that I was talking about. And this subconscious mind is part of the reason why that's so important. And it's not a horrible thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just that so much of our society right now is in a negative spot. It's in a negative area. We are surrounded by very harmful foods that have not been regulated out through the government, and so we got to protect it from ourselves. We got to protect. We got to be the ones to regulate it ourselves, not trusting the government to do it. There is um, just a lot of negative influences within our media, like our news, our TV, our songs, our movies, our social media. All of those things have very, very negative influences in the majority of them. And what you'll find is if you start paying attention to this, just how pervasive it is and how much it's actually gone downhill from even just like 10 years ago. Every year, it seems to be getting worse and more dark, like the TV shows and things like that. And it's quite astonishing just how the linear progression of straight down to the slumps into the self-abusive, dark, violent TV shows and movies and things that we are going into. And there seems to be uh, no awareness into this, and people are just absorbing it into their subconscious minds and creating programs. And their subconscious mind is thinking that's the safest thing to do, and so they go into self harm themselves or join other people who are doing the same thing. So that's why you see so many, you know, so much negative comments on social media and so many people with just internal negative dialogues where they distrust themselves, they beat themselves up, they tell themselves they're not good enough, they tell themselves they're ugly and they're fat and no one loves them, right? If this is you, know that there's a reason why these thoughts aren't going away. It's it's not because you're just a depressed person and that you can't do anything about it. There are solutions to do it. You got to address what you're putting into your body and putting into your mind because those things directly affect you. So, um, yeah, making these changes is all about changing what you're exposing yourself to so that you can align your conscious mind and your subconscious mind to be on the same page. You want them to be on the same page. That way you don't encounter that wall that I was talking about, that you're making progress and you just hit the wall and then you rebound back to where you were by sabotaging yourself. And it's oftentimes sometimes we end up in a worse position than we were. So like when I was trying to stop drinking for a while, I would tell myself I'm going to stop drinking. I stopped drinking for a couple of days, and then I go back and I hit the alcohol hard, rebound back, and then I'm drinking more than I was when I started. And it's because that part of your mind was like, whoa, 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 let's go back to where it's safe. Let's go back to where it's safe. And you know what? Let's increase it a little bit so that way we prove to everyone else, even though we stopped for a bit, we're still part of the tribe. Look, we're still part of the tribe. We're even, we're gonna even show you how much part of the tribe we are by drinking a little bit extra, right? So what you need to do is be the essentially filter between what goes into your subconscious mind and what doesn't. And what you can think of is your subconscious mind is like a castle, okay? Your subconscious mind is a castle, and there's and you only want to let certain things into your castle. If you let a bunch of thugs and a bunch of rapists and a bunch of hooligans and a bunch of just gang members and stuff into your castle, you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of distractions. You're going to have a lot of things to deal with that you shouldn't be dealing with, and then you won't be able to focus on building your castle to the best it can be. So instead, you need to be your conscious mind. You need to consciously be aware of what's going into your mind. And that's what we have as humans. We have a great ability. We have our conscious mind. So we can consciously be aware of what we're doing at any time. And we could look at a third person like, what am I doing right now? I'm watching this shameless TV show, and they are literally showing me an example of the worst life you can be living. Just constant problems, constant um, drugs and sexual relationship problems, and it's not something you want to be mimicking. So you got to think about what you are showing yourself, and then be that filter, be that gatekeeper to stop anything from coming into your castle. You got to be the one to stop it. No one else can do it for you, and it's been shown time and time again that the government's not going to do it for you. It's actually seems like they're trying to push it harder down our throats nowadays. So you got to be careful, especially with all that media, with all the fear mongering on the media. If you're watching the media, you should probably turn it off, because that can be extremely negative, and it can cause you to go into that stress state, that fear state. Remember, we were talking about where you go into short-term thinking, and we got to end that short-term thinking if we want to be able to overcome self-sabotage. Because think about it, if you're thinking short-term, you won't be thinking about how your actions are going to be affecting you, or where they're going to be leaving you in your life. When you're thinking long-term, you can think about, okay, if I go out drinking all night tonight and I need to do something very important tomorrow, where is that going to leave me? Okay, if I go, if I start binge watching this TV show for the rest of the week, and I want to be working my business, then where is that going to leave me? If I never work on my business, then how am I going to get to my business, right? You're just thinking short term. You're thinking, oh, I just want this pleasure. I just want this satisfaction. I just want this short term relaxation. But you're not thinking about it long term, and that's where we got to start doing. Think long term, and filter out those negative things out of your life, because it's so important you filter out those negatives. Because let's say you start to reprogram yourself and start giving your subconscious mind new positive things, but then you go back to watching The Shameless, you go back to watching all the other shows and listening to all the songs that have all those negative influences, and hanging out with the friends who are doing all those negative things. Well, then guess what? your subconscious mind is getting reprogrammed again, and it's already had that programming. So it's going to be even more powerful because repetition, remember, is something that directly affects your subconscious mind. So if it sees all those things again, it's gonna be like, oh, hey, we're re-seeing all the stuff that we used to do. Let's go back to it. It's safe again, and they'll go right on back to it, and we'll go back to it much quicker than you will with your new programming or your new safe things to do because you already had that previous programming. So you got to cut that stuff out of your life to make room for your new positive programming that you want to add into your mind. You want to start watching more podcasts that talk about the things you do want in your life, about health, about wealth, about being successful in a business. You got to be watching those sorts of things instead of watching the trash fire media. You got to be watching those things instead of listening to songs that are talking about partying and drinking all night, right? Those things aren't going to help you move towards the life you want. If anything, they're going to hinder you and cause your subconscious mind to cause that resistance. And then you'll be encountering that wall. And that's where you'll go back to that self-sabotage. So something to think about if you do want to make those changes. If you do want to make those changes and you're done telling yourself you're going to do something, you're fed up with it, and then never committing, then you need to address these things. And there's more you can be doing to address them. Let's just talk about these ones for now. But if you and you don't have to necessarily do them alone. I think that's important to say. There's plenty of people out there who can teach you how to understand the subconscious mind, how to overcome self-sabotage. I interview someone every Sunday who knows this information, right? So even if you don't think you and me would be a good fit, go get help from someone else. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. What is more embarrassing is, it's not embarrassing to ask for help. It's more embarrassing to know you need help and to sit there and do nothing about it. And that will leave you in a spot that is way worse off. The sooner you ask for help, the sooner you can start moving forward in life. The sooner you can learn from someone who's been where you are and is ready to help you create that change as soon as possible, as quick as possible, so that you don't have to go through what they did to get to where they are. So that you don't have to linger and go through the frustrations of fighting your subconscious all the way through and going bit by bit, trying to make those changes slowly, and then encountering that self-sabotage and moving right on back. And if you do want to reach and work with me, I would love to work with you. We can hop on a Zoom call. We can talk more about it and see what opportunities there are. If you just even want to, just chat for a tiny bit about this, schedule a Zoom call with me at the link below, okay? Or post a thing in the comments if you want me to talk about something specific for the next podcast. Or reach out to me in my email or at Facebook, and we'll talk some more. There are solutions, and we can move forward here. So anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Give it a like or a subscribe because that really does help it to get out to more people, and I'm trying to help as many people as possible. And please comment, like I said before. It's great for me to know if you guys like this, if you want more content like it, if you want something special or different, or if this has helped you, let me know what's going on. I would love that interaction with you guys. Anyways, thank you for listening and have a fantastic day.